Okay, clean old-fashioned hate on Friday night in Athens. We've not seen one of these non-Saturday games for Tech in Georgia since the 90s. Those games I remember quite well, going with Vance Wilder to Bobby Dodd and seeing other games in Athens when these games were on Thanksgiving or, these non-Saturday games. Um, Georgia listed as a pretty significant favorite. I thought they would be about a 17-point favorite. They're a 20.5-point favorite. Everything is reactionary. Everything is about what we just saw. Georgia didn't play well defensively against UMass. They played well against Tennessee. So there was, there's that. But, Tech did not look great on this past Thursday night. So Tech's got an extra day to get ready. Georgia now will play in the SEC championship game. They've played Tech before the SEC championship game every single time they played in the SEC championship game. So that's not really new. We've seen this is going to be the fourth year in a row. And uh, let's see, 7 of the last 8 years where Georgia's played in the SEC championship game, and they played Tech in the preceding game. And you think about in 17, that was not a very close game at all. 18 was, 18 was not. It was very not memorable. It was in Athens, obviously, and then in 19, Georgia did not play well against Tech for the first half. It was in the Tech partisans were definitely giggling about it the whole time. 21, that game was the first time they had played that game since the 19 game down in Atlanta. They played pretty well against Tech that day. That was an afternoon game, as I recall. And then in 22 was probably the sort of ugliest of Georgia and Tech, which was a pretty good beating in Athens. It took them a second or two to get going against the Jackets in that game too. And then last year, Tech played pretty well. I mean, Brent Key's done a really good job at Tech. The way that they played against NC State was the way that I thought they would, which was sloppy. And I bet that Tech will play one of their best games of the season against Georgia. I think the problem for them right now is it looks like Georgia's offense has started to really get going. And that's without, that this Georgia team could be really explosive in the near future. Um, they could be. Now, we'll see. But against Tech, a team that, will fight you, you've got to be ready to go out and tackle the Jackets, like literally, because, I don't know what the situation is at quarterback, but they've been splitting guys. I don't know if Haynes King is healthy. It doesn't seem like it. He didn't look healthy against NC State. And then, the Athens area quarterback for them, he came out and won them that game against NC State. It's probably a game they should have lost, if we're being honest. It was an ugly game, man. But 20 is a lot. 20 is a lot of points, in my view. That's a lot of points to play, to lay. I'm not sure I'll do that. I see the Egg Bowl. Ole Miss is a 26-point favorite. The No One Cares Bowl, which is Nebraska and Iowa. I usually listen to that game when I'm driving around on Fridays. That will be the game opposite Georgia and Tech. Iowa's a 4-point favorite. Some of the other more curious ones, they're really big. It's probably one of the biggest Tennessee Vandy games in a long, long time. Tennessee's an 11.5-point favorite. Clemson, Carolina. South Carolina is not favored in this game. I know it's at Clemson, but Clemson's a 2.5-point favorite. I mean, that's a big game. That's a bigger game than it usually is, to be honest with you. Michigan, 20.5-point dog at Ohio State. I think we can all concede that this is the year that Ohio State gets it done against Michigan. Never thought I'd say it like that. The Gators are a 13-point favorite over Florida State. They're probably going to really beat the Noles pretty good. I would imagine. A game I would have been curious about now, I don't think it really matters, is Notre Dame's going to go, almost a touchdown favorite at SC. Oregon is an 18-point favorite over UW. And then, I don't know, let's see, I don't know if we've got times yet for some of these games. Louisville, 3.5-point favorite in the Bluegrass. Arkansas and Mizzou are a field goal as well there for Mizzou. God, Missouri's only a 3-point favorite. Wow. Territorial Cup is Arizona's a touchdown favorite. So there's a lot of curious games here. We've got Alabama and Auburn, Texas A&M. So you got A&M Texas. A&M is a 7.5 point dog at home, and Auburn is a 12 point dog on the road at Alabama. That Oklahoma LSU game is going to be curious as well. There's a lot of curious, like fun kind of games. There's not a lot of late games, unfortunately, for those of us who watch these games late. But Georgia's at a moment here where uh, they can really grasp a hold of things, and if you win your next two games, you're the two seed, which coming off the field in Oxford definitely did not feel that way. And the one thing about this college football season, I'll say, is uh, it does not feel like there's a great team out there. I'm pretty sure there's not. I think Oregon and Ohio State have looked like the best teams. Texas and Georgia, I'm not sure you can really say that about them. But the the point that should be added though is that um, we are still 2 months away from the national championship game, and you know we probably saw the earthquake week this on Saturday. We might not see that moving forward, but conference championships always matter. That weekend always matters, and um, you know I just don't know what it has in store. Rivalry week this year, unless Vanderbilt and Tech beat Georgia and Tennessee, I don't know that there's a lot of other games that can really affect things. Like Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, they're all in. Even with losses, I think they'd be in. Now, Indiana, maybe not. But, I mean, like Penn State's playing Maryland. Maryland is terrible. Terrible. These are bad football teams. And so I think we're kind of getting set here on this field. It is important that there are a couple of games that are important in ways that you might not think. Tech, Georgia, Tennessee, Vandy, South Carolina, Clemson is a very important game for the playoff because you know you could see Clemson can still get into the college football playoff. South Carolina is going to act like they can. I don't think they can. I think that they've eaten one too many losses along the way, and they're going to complain about the LSU. Had they won that game, they'd be in the playoff. Yeah, maybe they would, or the Alabama game. I don't know if they've got anything to complain about there. But if this is about complaining about officiating, Georgia would have another national championship in 2017. So let's kind of hold that down. Um, but it is always, rivalry weekend can really be dull sometimes, and sometimes it can be lots of fun. I think if you're Georgia, you don't ever want it to be fun. You just want it to be dull because you're playing Tech, and that's the part that if they do not take Georgia Tech seriously, they will be in a real big fight with them. But and I will point this out as well. The only place Tech has beaten Georgia since 19 well since in this century has been in Athens, and in the last 34 years, Georgia's only lost to Tech in Athens with the exception of one game. So it's not like winning at Sanford is a big deal to. I mean, Tech has done that, so that's not that complicated for them to pull off. Um, there have been some ugly ones along the way, by the way. I mean, 96 Tech Georgia was gross. 98 Tech beat Georgia in Athens. 2000 they beat Georgia in Athens. And it was a cold, rainy day, and George Godsey is still out there running for touchdowns on option plays. The guy could barely walk, and he was scoring touchdowns like that. 2002 was a total blowout in Athens. 2004 was a tight winter game, 2016, something like that, Reggie Ball game. 2006, Matthew has to come down, lead them to a win in the fourth quarter, hits Muhammad Massaquoi for a 2 point conversion to win that game 15-12 or whatever it was. That was, what was that, 2006? Oh, Tony Taylor fumble pickup. 2008, they lost. Yeah, they lost to the Jackets. And then 2010, the game was at night. It was cold. And Georgia, the winner of the game, went to a bowl game, and the loser did not, or at least Georgia had to, and they did. And 12 was a total beating. 14 they lost. 16 they lost. 18 was a kind of nondescript blowout. They didn't play in 2000, and then in 2022, it took them a little bit of time to get going against Tech. I think Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint had a real nice touchdown in the on the bridge end zone. There's not been a lot of just like thorough beatings of Tech in Athens. Um, I think people dismiss Tech um, maybe more than is good for your health, but the game can be a difficult game. I think the problem for Tech has just been they just don't win it a lot. And in my lifetime, I've not seen Tech beat Georgia a lot. And but I tell you this, when they do, that's a real big deal in Atlanta and Athens. You know, Georgia is Tech's biggest game every single year, period. Tech is Georgia's biggest game of the year when they lost to him the year before. That's how this thing works. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not, I this channel, this video is about telling y'all a reality. And um, as a person who grew up in Atlanta and knows Tech quite well, I would say, I can assure you that Georgia, if they do not play well, can end up on the upset on the wrong side of an upset. And that would be really devastating for them. But it's up to Kirby Smart. He knows what it's like to lose to Tech because his final game in Sanford Stadium as a player, he lost to the Jackets, and his first game as head coach against Tech, he lost. So he knows what it's like. I think a lot of people that are, and this may be wrong. I think a lot of non-Atlanta Georgia folks and certainly out of state Georgia folks don't understand this rivalry at all. I think if you live in Atlanta, or certainly if you grew up in Atlanta, you know how important this game is. You can't be Georgia without the rivalry with Tech. You wouldn't be the same school. And what makes those two places different, the style of the institution, the colors, all of that, the types of people that go to both schools. It is the natural. Um, you see that in a lot of rivalries. Most rivalries are not like Michigan, Ohio State, where both schools are kind of the same, or I mean, Tech, Georgia, very different. Vandy, Tennessee, very different. Clemson, South Carolina, very different. NC State, Carolina. I mean, the Carolina people would tell you they're very different than the NC State people. But Georgia, this is an important rivalry. It's an important moment in the season, and Georgia better play well, or Tech will give them plenty of trouble in Athens. I've seen it plenty of times. Dogs, almost a 3 touchdown favorite over Tech.